Within our Rotary clubs and community. My name is Lynn. I'm from District 9705 in Australia.
Thank you, Lynn. And I am Jill Petrosinski. I come from District 6510 in the United States.
And good afternoon. My name is Blaine Johnson, past District Governor from District 5580 in the United States. And welcome to this afternoon's breakout session on club visioning. Before we get started, I'd like to, as you've already heard a few times, direct your attention to the Rotary app. Go into the schedule where you can find the breakout session on club visioning and add that to your schedule. That allows you to participate in the online discussion. It allows you access to the presentation materials that we are going to go over this afternoon, along with a couple of handouts. And at the end of the presentation, we'd invite you to give us a little survey and some feedback on how well we did, and of course in the Rotary fashion, be brutally honest. So with that, welcome to Melbourne. Woo! What a fantastic city to have a convention, right? And what a great opportunity to talk about the future of Rotary. In our aspect this afternoon, club visioning is the perfect opportunity to showcase this convention's theme, Imagine What's Next. That's in essence exactly what club visioning is all about. It was at the Foundation Summit yesterday evening, and they shared the quotation that it always seems impossible until it's done. It's Nelson Mandela, right? It always seems impossible until it's done. How many of you have an easier time remembering things that have happened than imagining things that might happen? That's almost all of us, if we're honest, right? I know I certainly didn't expect to be standing on this stage when I became a Rotarian almost 20 years ago, standing halfway across the world, talking to my best friends about a process of imagination in Rotary. And how many of us, when faced with a new idea, instinctively go to how it will fail instead of how to make it succeed? We all do it. It's natural. Club visioning is really the solution for that. I think of a quotation from President John F. Kennedy. He said, "Those individuals who only see the past or the present are certain to miss the future." Club visioning is a facilitated experiment that allows clubs to explore their possibilities, to eventually paint a picture that is so clear, so vivid, that individual club members can latch onto that picture and turn that imagination into reality. I know most of you are familiar with the RI vision statement, right? It's been around for a while. It's an important one, and I really have to commend those who are responsible for drafting it. In one succinct sentence, it identifies the vision that we all share. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Let that sink in for a minute. Together, all of us, it's not just my vision or a president's vision or a district governor's vision, it's our vision. We buy into that vision. We own it. We are responsible for it. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. You'll see through this presentation that vision drives everything. It all starts with a vision. So our learning objectives for this session are simply to introduce you to an understanding of the proven process of club visioning. How we go through writing exercises to explore the possibilities that clubs may have. Our clubs are all unique. They're comprised of unique individuals and different connections and different resources with different challenges. And we allow them the opportunity to explore their ideas, their imagination, and then vote on the prioritization of those ideas, to come to a consensus, to synthesize where they're headed and paint that picture of that club's future. We take that future vision and we share innovative ways to adapt to clubs' needs in today's environment. We explore options of adaptation. We explore hybrid scenarios. We explore the use of technology and how to improve upon those clubs' abilities to connect and expand their reach. And then we take those opportunities and we create a successful action plan so that those club members can see the roadmap on how to ultimately reach that destination. And finally, we give them the call to action to take that dream and turn it into a reality. I'll hand it off to Jill now to share a little bit about the Rotary Action Plan.
Thank you, Blaine. In 2018, the Board of Rotary International and the trustees of the Rotary Foundation adopted our current Rotary Action Plan. It was designed to be a 5-year strategy towards moving our organization forward into the future. Notice it's now 5 years. You'll hear a little bit more about that. We know to expand our reach, we have to increase participant engagement. We've got to have excited, happy members who are attracting others to our organization. And we also know to increase our impact, we're going to have to continue to increase our ability to adapt. Through club visioning, you have a tool that will bring this action plan to life. Because where does Rotary happen? It happens in the club. And this will allow the action plan to come to fruition. So let's learn a little bit more about our current Rotary Action Plan.
We are people of action.
And when there's a challenge to confront, people of action come together and make a plan.
Even as we continue to help address global challenges, we're facing one of our own. When Rotary surveyed people around the world, we found a big gap between who we are as an organization today and who we need and want to be.
Our foundation is strong, but Rotary is ready to show that we can grow and become even stronger.
So we established our new action plan as a roadmap for how we can think differently, be more inclusive, and become a stronger, more effective Rotary.
The plan has 4 priorities. We're going to increase our impact because now more than ever, the world needs innovative planning and proved solutions. We'll be more data-driven, not just serving communities and doing good works, but measuring what we do so we can scale up our successes. And share more compelling stories about the good we do.
We will expand our reach by welcoming new people into Rotary and finding new ways to connect with people who share our commitment to making our communities and ourselves better. We'll enhance participant engagement by making sure everyone who connects with us gets even more out of their experiences than they put in.
And we'll increase our ability to adapt, because staying ahead of change, while staying true to who we are, is exactly how we make sure we have the staying power it takes to lead a new century of change.
Rotary's action plan is ambitious, but we can do it.
If we work together on new ways to think, plan, and take action, we will bring our communities and our organization to new heights.
Our legacy is in the making. Ready to do your part?
Let's show the world what it means to be people of action.
People of action. That's what we are. Yet do all of our clubs live and model this? Some do. As I mentioned earlier, this action plan was developed in 2018, and it was designed for 5 years. You will be very happy to know that continuity isn't just something that is important at the club level or the district level. It's important all the way up the top through Rotary International. Your president nominee, Stephanie Yurchek, was very involved in the development of this action plan. And she has committed that this is our action plan. We're not going to do a new one. For the foreseeable future, this is the way Rotary will continue to succeed. So let's talk about why a plan might be needed for our club. Blaine?
Thanks, Joe. Why do we need a plan? Why does anybody need a plan, right? Do any of you know of a Fortune 500 company that on an annual basis fires its CEO, its board of directors, and all of its managers? We do. Thank you for your service. It's been great. The new batch is ready. Our traditions of annual cycles are a challenge for us. Every year we have new ideas, different thought processes, different individuals at the helm. But with a plan, with a vision, we are able to build a roadmap that gives direction to that club over the course of time. We're not looking at a 1-year goal. We're looking at 3 years out, 5 years out, so that we know exactly where we're headed and we know where the destination is, even if the path to that destination may change. We ultimately get there. And that plan establishes that multi-year coordinated plan so that we're all headed in the same direction. We all know where we're going. That plan's communicated. And ultimately, that leads to greater continuity, consistency, and because we've discussed where we're headed with the club members, we have buy-in from those club members. I think of my very first time as a president-elect. I was a whopping 29 years old. I'd been a Rotarian for about a year and a half. I had no idea what Rotary was. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Who in the world picked that idiot to lead a Rotary Club? But thanks to club visioning, as I stepped into the role of club president, they handed me a 3-year plan and said, this is exactly what you need to do. We've already done the hard work for you. How many people are in clubs that maybe it's difficult to find someone to volunteer to be that idiot? Oh my gosh, almost everybody. Well, I feel sorry for you. But with club visioning, it's much easier to convince someone to take on that leadership responsibility. Because they know from the very onset that they're not doing it alone. They have the support and the backing of all the club members and the leaders that came before them and they have a direction to take their club. I'm not one to usually name drop, but we do have a very good testimonial from someone of importance that advocates for club visioning, and in fact has been trained as a facilitator. And club visioning isn't just a United States thing. As I mentioned before, all of our clubs are unique. They have different ideas and they're posed with different threats. But the club visioning process is one that is readily adaptable to address those concerns. We're in the United States and Canada, we're here in Australia, we're in the Nordic countries of Europe, in Russia, and even now expanding into Africa. So you might ask, why then create a vision for your club? And the fact of the matter is that statistics don't lie, although people use statistics to lie. But the numbers are there. District 5960 in the United States, where club visioning started over 20 years ago, has been keeping tabs on the progress and success of clubs that have visioned in comparison to those that haven't. Now, these are post-pandemic numbers. The ones prior to COVID were even more favorable to club visioning. But we know that club visioning helps build membership. In those clubs that have visioned, 35% have seen increases in membership, as opposed to 20% and 21% in those that haven't. We know that clubs that have visioned are more likely to receive awards at district level. We know that the average donations to the Rotary Foundation are greater in those clubs that have visioned. And I can share a personal testimonial as well. In my club, prior to club visioning, our foundation donations were a paltry, maybe $2,000 a year after year after year. Nothing ever changed. The first year after club visioning, that number jumped to $9,000. Year 2 was $13,000. Year 3, $18,000. That's 9 times increase. Just because we had a direction, we had a vision to use the foundation as a vehicle to support the work that we were doing within the club. And that motivated people to contribute. So what will a 3-year plan establish? Well, first of all, because we seek the advice of our club members, the outcome reflects the passions and the values of the club. We listen to the club members. We say, what do you want? Where do you want to go? And the outcome then reflects who we are. And that provides, that identity provides direction for our projects, our fundraising, and all of our club functions. And as a result of listening to our members and getting that buy-in from club leadership and members, we develop that consensus. We create ensuring support and focus and continuity over the course of those 3 years. Lynn, would you share with us the Vision to Success process?
Thanks, Blaine, and it works. I have in my hand a whole lot of quotes here. I won't subject you to all of them. Sorry, you're getting a couple of them. And I'm going to read it because Paul Harris, that man that we all know about, actually said, if Rotary is to realise its proper destiny, it must be evolutionary at all times and revolutionary on occasions. The Vision to Success process is actually very simple. By using a proven method, i.e. visioning, which is a proven professional process, we create the vision, We create the vision of what our unique club looks like 3 to 5 years hence. We create that vision, and then we work out, okay, how do we actually make that happen? We create our master plan. We create our long-range plan, which is how we got there. That is our master plan. Then we go, okay, we've got the plan. What are the activities? What are the things that we need to do? Now, the beauty of visioning and the Rotary Action Plan is that when you create those actions and those activities, that is the basis for our Rotary Action Plan. It all fits together. Now, I sort of fibbed because the next thing we do is I'll go very quickly through what we actually do at the process. Actually, having said that, who here has gone through Rotary visioning process in the past? Okay, let's get an idea. That's great. So many of you haven't, many of you have, and what you're going to discover, of course, it's moving forward all the time. The one thing you have to be with visioning is actually up to date with what's going on. So, some things are still consistent. Ideas are being generated. Visioning gives an opportunity to every club member who participates in this to actually have their voice heard multiple times, not just once, not to be ignored, not to be talked over, but actually have their voice heard. That information is captured. And why is that important? I warned you. Paul Harris said, yet again, Rotary is not an organisation for introspection. It is one whose worth and purpose lie in future activity rather than past performance. And this is an opportunity for all our members to think about where we're going. And I'm pretty sure that you may have been in a club or at a moment in time in your club where there is no consensus about what you're going to be doing going forward. Because everyone has their pet projects, everyone has something new that they wish to do, or something old that they've been doing all for many, many years, and it's a great project. What visioning does and having this participation brings consensus to what you look like as a unique club going forward. Okay, you know what this looks like. The group gets together and you can either do it face to face, you can do it online. But again, what this does, it gives the opportunity, you created your vision, you've had a conversation, and I'm just going to make sure I don't give you another quote. Because you all know the Einstein one, don't you? I can't help myself. Really, it's terrible, isn't it? Logic will take you from A to B, imagination will take you where? No one knows that. Okay, logic will take you from A to B. Einstein claims that imagination will take you to everywhere. That is what this is now about. We collect all the imagination. We combine imagination and evidence. We actually collate this information. We've made our master plan. We have now made our actions. We have our actions that we've decided what we need to do to get there. We actually put together everyone's identified thoughts about what they should be doing, what could be doing, what our club really looks like. These then are voted upon. Everyone who is participating, and often those who are not able to participate can vote later, and you actually vote against all of these to reduce down all the suggestions to the top 3 priorities in what our club's activities now are going to look like. Okay? Again, they become the basis for your Rotary Action Plan. It is not easy filling the forms. Well, I don't know. Anybody here like filling the forms? Okay. Well, we have a form. Now, it is actually quite simple. What is a Rotary Action Plan? What do we do with this information? We have our activity. We have our who is going to look after that activity and move it forward. And we have when. Now, if you've done visioning before, you know that we talk about champions. We talk about visioning champions. What we need for a visioning champion is a volunteer. Is there anyone here who's had a problem putting their boards together for the next year? No, you've all got your boards sorted, great. Okay, well sometimes you don't get volunteers, sometimes somebody doesn't put their hand up. With the process, because you get to practice an action plan as part of the visioning process, people understand, your club members start to understand what it is really involved. So they bring it together and they go, sure, I understand what that means. I am happy to volunteer to do this particular action. I am happy to champion this particular area. And it makes it so much easier. So I just check that I'm not going to give another quote. Yeah. So, you can see here what it starts to look like. And I've mentioned that if you've done visioning before, you have known that it's been in a certain way. But of course, we keep up with the times. And so I'd really like to ask you, Jill, can you bring us up to speed with what's been happening with visioning in the last 2 years?
Thanks, Lynn, I appreciate it. So the world's a little different than it used to be, isn't it? How many of you are in clubs who are back to 100% meeting in person? Okay, the majority. Anyone in a club that is 100% meeting virtually? Online? How about those of you who have combined them, that you have like a hybrid or a virtual component? Okay. How do you take a 20-year proven process and keep it fresh and keep it modern? We know that there were some lessons learned in the pandemic, and some of them were beneficial. One of the things we learned is that we can leverage technology to meet people where they are and sometimes save a little money doing it. We also know statistically that young leaders are really looking for us to meet them where they are. The flexibility that the council and legislation now allows has really opened up realms of possibilities for clubs to look any way they choose to look. So the club visioning process is developed to deliver in your district the way that works for you and your clubs. And that could be virtual, on site, or just like your club meetings, a combination of the two. You saw the map earlier. How many of you knew that club visioning was a global process? Okay, got a few of you. As we continue to expand our reach with club visioning, we know that that includes delivering club visioning in non-English speaking countries. We've had to increase our ability to adapt. Right now we have 50 active districts and growing, and one of the things that has evolved, clubs are reimagining who they can be. And using club visioning as that process is giving them direction. It gives them that beacon, that consensus of which they now know they can be a little more flexible, even if they didn't think that they could, because frankly, they didn't have a choice during the pandemic. So the time is now as ripe as ever for clubs to really think outside of the box with who they can be and how they can reach their community in new and innovative ways. It also can provide a significant cost savings. I mean, have you ever had a district event, an assembly, or a session where people just didn't show up? You know, it's harder and harder to engage. So by integrating some of the technology when it makes sense, it does allow you to deliver to a broader audience. As mentioned earlier, the club visioning process is very tightly aligned with the Rotary Action Plan. We know that Rotary happens in the clubs, but how do we get the clubs to realize what they can do? So going through, for those of you who raised your hands that you're familiar with the club visioning process, if you haven't gone through it in a while, you'll notice a few changes. And one is the questions that we're asking of our members in alignment with the action plan priorities. We also know that we need to meet you where you are. And that includes increasing our impact with the tools that are available. So our website has been redesigned. We have a lot of self-paced tutorial material, video examples of club visioning, both many of them actually were virtual, but where you can actually see how it works. If you're not sure, if maybe you're serving in a role that you've not served in before, it's just able to be watched at your convenience. So trying to have web-based tools, interactive learning, it helps us meet you where you are. And we have teams that are available to come into your district to also help you work on your program. We need to be flexible. That means we need your help in knowing what your people need, what your clubs in your districts are most comfortable with. So technology is not for everyone. For some it works very, very well. It's optional. I know I come from the Midwest and many of our clubs prefer to do it in person, and that's fine. So even though we have a 20-year program, we've evolved and increased our ability to adapt, leveraging. We also recognized, and you heard both Blaine and Lynn mention our master plan, our action plans. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in a second. But we realized that a great club visioning process is only as good as the outcome. What do they put into action? So we have actually guides now to really help the club leaders work through their action plans and resources that are available to help coach them to actually achieving their goals. So Blaine, let's hear a little bit more about that action plan.
Thanks, Joe. So one of the things that is new to club visioning and the process as we've adapted to align with the Rotary Action Plan is the master plan and action plan functions. So once we've identified those club visions, those destinations, we then break the participants into small groups to talk about how we're going to actually put those things into practice. So how many of you have maybe done strategic planning or maybe a visioning session and you get the results at the end, and where do they go? Up on the shelf to be pulled back down in about 3 years to see how well we've done, right? That never happens. Well, we thought we'd give you a little jump start. So as you look at it, some destinations are readily accessible, right? They're maybe a short walk, easily reachable. Other destinations take a little bit more thought, a little bit more distance, a little bit more time. And some destinations, like me flying from North Dakota in the United States all the way to Australia and having United Airlines cancel my flights and miss my connections, they take a little bit longer, right? A little bit more thought, a little bit more planning. So we start with the master plan. And that master plan is kind of a high-level overview of what can we accomplish in a reasonable amount of time. Some visions are things that are easy to do, easy to accomplish, things that we can finish right away that are going to make an impact for our clubs. Do those first, because your club members are going to see the achievement of those objectives, and that is going to motivate them to go after more. Some of our visions take a little bit more planning. Maybe it's a 2-year thing. We need to think about this before we start acting on it, but we'll get to it in year 2. And some visions that we have, when we initially take them on, may seem unreachable. Those are things that we need to think about a little bit more, put a little bit more effort into, and we'll eventually get to them in year 3. Once we've identified that master plan, we break each one of those visions into small, easily understood steps. So we ask questions like, What's it going to take to accomplish this? Who do we need to champion that project? How much money is it going to take? How many people need to be involved? What are reasonable deadlines for meeting our objectives? And ultimately, when we get to that point where we think we've accomplished it, what metrics are we using to know that we were successful? That is the action plan. Breaking everything down into a step-by-step, easily understood, easily digestible bit of information, so that maybe some of our Rotarians who are outside of their comfort zone and don't see how we get from point A to B, that's their roadmap. Step by step, month by month, and here's where we'll know when we've arrived at our destination. And that is our small group practice. We break our participants up into groups of maybe 3 or 4, and we have them work through sample action plans. Sometimes we'll assign a different action plan for each small group. Sometimes we'll make them do all the same action, so that when they share their ideas, they can understand that despite the fact that they were searching for the same destination, they all had different ways of getting there. And they can piggyback those ideas off of another group's ideas and make it the best plan for that particular club. So, where will your club be in 3 years, Lynn?
Thanks, Blaine. I love that picture. I'm sorry, I still like it. Where will our clubs be? Let's just go back a moment. Club visioning. What does it do? Why do we do it? Again, one of the things that it does is it gives every member in our club an opportunity to have their voice heard. Not just think their voice is heard, but actually have it heard. The visioning process enables discussions amongst all our members to talk about the things that matter most to them. About the club, about the district sometimes, about where they fit in with other clubs, about who might like to do what with whom. So it gives our members an opportunity to own the process, to own what goes forward. It creates consensus. It creates consistency in the end of thinking. This does not mean we can't come up with new ideas on the process or over the years, but it does mean that we have a strong foundation from which to build our club activities, all of them. Our club service, our international service, our youth projects. And do you realise how many clubs, unfortunately, do not understand the difference between club service and community service? And I'm really sad to say that still, the Rotary Foundation is one of those areas that people are not quite sure about either. So this gives us the opportunity in our clubs to address those anomalies, to actually make sure all of our members understand the difference between these areas and the activities we do. Consensus, consistency, continuity. You have that over at least 3 years. They won't work unless there's another C involved. Can anyone think of what that other C might be that visioning brings forward? Yes? Communication in one, thank you. Absolutely. I'm not sure, but some clubs certainly have a problem with communication. Sometimes it's simply because of the day or the time that meetings are held. Sometimes because it's people who've already got the great ideas and they're talking to their own clique. Sometimes it's because they've just forgotten, they haven't shared that information with somebody. Communication and good communication is absolutely essential for the growth of our club, any of our clubs. When you undertake a visioning process, that becomes so clear that communication is just such an integral part of what we do that we start to improve it, and we can always improve. So, if we want to be successful, we look at listening to each other, we look at discussing those issues, we look at coming up with that plan that takes us forward. We communicate so much better. That's what visioning is about. And I would actually like to ask if there's anyone here who might like to share their visioning stories with the rest of us. If so, please, just for a minute or two. Microphones are here and up in the middle. Is there anyone who might like to share a either positive or negative visioning story, because we learn from what goes on?
And if you're using the interpretive devices, we have the ability for you to ask or share in your own language, and then we'll be happy to work with our interpreters on that. So while people are kind of thinking through what they want to say, how many of you here are from Zone 8? You all have some things going on right now, don't you? One of the opportunities through club visioning is to actually work within the regionalization concept from the club level, to really reimagine and think through what can your club be, knowing that you've got some more flexibility. So it is very well aligned, and the timing is pretty spot on with that preference. Just a thought to consider. So I know we had a few hands that went up that said that you've done club visioning. Yeah, go ahead. Have you come to the microphone, please? Thanks. There's one.
So yeah, I'm here first, so I'll talk first. My name is Nick Rackers. I am from District 6080 in Missouri, Rotary Club of Jefferson City, Missouri, USA. I was asked to join a visioning facilitation team to be a facilitator. I am a college instructor by training or by trade, and I am a big fan of high impact in a short amount of time. And I don't know if they said it yet, but normally this thing happens between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. at night, and it is a jump starter for a club. If you have wondered, well, where's our club going to be? Like they've talked about, it's going to have 3 years. I'm telling you, that's why I jumped on the visioning bandwagon, was because it is an incredible night, and as a facilitator, we get to hear and steal all the ideas that all these great clubs come up with, so that's a bonus as well. But the added addition of the master plan and the action plan that came from the pandemic, that ended up, used to be visioning was like a really good Kickstarter, but then it didn't, it's like, now what do we do? If you were the club, the question was, now what do we do and how do we execute? And so I really think that visioning is primed after the pandemic, and people are wondering, where are we going? If your district doesn't have visioning, get it, and if you have it, contact your visioning coordinator in your district. I ended up becoming my district's visioning chair and do that for my district. So I am a firm believer in club visioning.
Thank you, Nick.
I'm PDG Massey from District 5230 in California. I just want to echo everything the gentleman said. Visioning is so critical, and many times when we have fewer members, we neglect it. And I encourage all my clubs, I encourage them, don't worry about numbers, because Rotary was founded by 2 people, and today we are in 186 countries. They had a vision, and vision is like buying a ticket. If you know where you're going, you're likely to get there. And so it is so essential, and I believe that our greatest drawback in growing our clubs is not having a direction, and visioning will provide that direction. I applaud you for your presentation, and I thank you, and I encourage everyone here, whether you have fewer members or lots of members, your impact will grow if you develop a plan, a roadmap. If you have a GPS, you will get there hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and come down to the front, and then we'll go back up top.
Hi, my name's Len. I'm from New Zealand, Whakatane, New Zealand. In 2018 we had 2 evening clubs. The numbers were falling. So what we did was integrated 2 clubs. So bringing 2 clubs together, I sort of led the process in 2018 of pulling a strategic plan together for the new club, which was great. That brought everybody together, everybody's involved. And we started by asking the question, what is the purpose of our club? So we came together and pulled out 3 key aims, and from those aims we pulled an action plan together. We've just recently, very recently, because it's a 5-year plan, we've reviewed it, we've made some slight tweaks to it, and now we've got a plan that takes us from this year to 2028. The difficulty that I'm having, it's been very successful in bringing the 2 clubs together into one, and also our teams know exactly what they need to be doing. We've got teams that align with the plan, and that's all very positive, all very good. But one difficulty I have is to try and align it to the Rotary Action Plan. So where we've got things like increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participation and engagement, increase our ability to adapt, we haven't got any specific actions that align with those. So my question is, how do we align with those high-level actions?
So it sounds like you may be using the original club visioning process, and it's been redesigned a little bit to help align those. Lynn is actually your coordinator here in Zone 8. So you want to, I'm not sure exactly how the process is working here, so you want to share that?
Well, the process in Zone 8 at the moment is that because we're all sorting out for regionalisation, and there, as you can imagine, there are some things that are a little bit different. I'll answer that one. I'll take that one further, but I'll come back and answer that. So 2 parts. We are looking at, and we're able to help. We have a committee around the place, and I can help you with that. But I'd just like to say, even with my own district, where I'm an AGG, I have all my presidents coming to me. We put it within the Rotary Action Plan. Many of these clubs haven't done visioning, but understanding the Rotary Action Plan is simply, they're simply different terms for what you're already doing. And it's about understanding what those terms actually mean. And as Jill has just pointed out, with the new visioning, I'm happy to share that with you, so with the new visioning process, when we do the actions and the activities to achieve our vision, we are actually already thinking in terms of that bigger picture, what's the impact of our activity. And I might add at this point too, that also aligns, and what is lovely about this, visioning gives us the ability to be unique in our clubs and help ourselves to be unique. The action plan, and I'm also a cadre, so I love it because it reminds us that everything we do has a ripple effect. Okay, and we often forget about that. And I'll hark you back to the fact that people have good ideas in our clubs, but we forget sometimes about the influence of those activities. Some are short-term and some are long-term, and that's actually where it fits in. So you think about your activity in terms of short and long-term impact as well. Does that make more sense? Sort of. We can have a conversation outside. Happy to do that.
Thank you. All right, back to the top.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Dunia. I'm a past president of Rotary Club of Abbeville in Louisiana, USA, and I'm currently district governor nominee-elect for District 6200. A visiting process is something that is extremely fun and welcoming to many of the clubs. We've had the opportunity to vision with clubs that have just begun and clubs that have been in place for 100 years. And when it comes to the realization, when we bring the club members together, and I'm not going to use the word old, how about experienced Rotarians and new Rotarians. And one of the amazing outcomes that we received from doing a visiting session is that there was this project that the club did consistently for years and very passionate about that. And it gave the opportunity to bring this up where these new Rotarians really didn't feel that that was the project that they wanted to move forward with. So we would have the opportunity to have a discussion between the two and coming to a realization and adapting that club with taking them on a journey 3 years from today on what that project would look like. And they actually evolved that project and made it 3 times better and successful in their own community. It was really amazing when we put the members of the club together in one room, allow them to have the opportunity to express their opinions, their desires of what they want to see their club look like in 3 years from today. We get many of the Rotarians that want to talk about the goodness that they're doing now, but we reinforce with them on what is the goodness you will be doing in the future. And it's really a fun process, and we adapt as a district. We move it around and allow the clubs to be able to, go participate in their areas, and it gives them the opportunity to participate in feeling the ownership of taking their Rotary Club to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. I'm Kathy Smith. I'm from District 5960 in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've been involved with visioning for a long time. Done a lot of clubs, and I've trained a lot of facilitators. And just wanted to say, one of the things I always say at the end of a visioning event or when I'm training trainers, once a club has a 3-year plan in their community, what it allows them to do is go out and say to their community, this is our 3-year plan. Here's what the Rotary Club of this community is going to be doing over the next 3 years. If you want to participate in this, contact us. This becomes a recruiting tool. If what the club is doing is relevant to their community, now they've got a recruiting tool. They just have to get out to the word out to all the people in their community to say, here's who we are, here's what we're doing. If you want to jump on board with this, contact us.
Thanks for sharing that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Maskell, past District Governor of District 1118. Hi, Jill, by the way. Prior to doing my District Governor journey, I was the visioning facilitator for my district. And one of the problems I had was getting clubs that I well knew needed to do the visioning process to actually buy into it. One of the ideas I had and never got past my district hierarchy at the time was actually getting the district to do it and go through that visioning process. And I just wanted to ask whether you've got any experience of districts doing this and how successful or otherwise it has been.
Actually, can I answer that one? I'd really just like to make a comment about districts and DGs. My own district, we were trained, we had training back in 2008, and so a whole bunch of us went up to Parramatta, Sydney, had our training, and over the next 10 years, all of those vision facilitators became district governors. Tell you what, that is the most brilliant way to have visioning going on in your district. When your district governor is part of it, and then you can also do district visioning.
So, as a follow-up, this is a very timely topic, so Bob, thank you for that question. Because very frequently, and we're going to talk about the engagement process in your district in just a second, but a club will ask their district, is the district doing that? Looking for clarity, so their visions will align. So the International Visioning Facilitation Council, who owns the copyrights to the club visioning process, is actually in development right now of a district visioning process. We do have a lot of examples, Bob, that are some of the facilitators, as Lynn just explained, has happened in Zone 8, use those skills in a modified, consensus building process. It has not been formalized under a district visioning brand. Stay tuned, more to come on that, because it is getting asked very frequently. But thank you.
So mine is actually more a question about the visioning process and whether it is advisable to do a community needs assessment prior to a club doing visioning just so that the club's vision is somewhat aligned with what the community needs are. Sorry if I'm jumping to something you're not talking
No,
about yet.
that is a fantastic observation and a great question. Would it be helpful? I think it would. Is it necessary? Probably not. As the club, remember that the purpose, one of the purposes at least, of club visioning is to identify the passions of the club members and where they want to take the club. So as part of their analysis and maybe more of the action plan in identifying how they reach that destination in a way that best fits the community that they're in, that community needs assessment may lead them in a different direction, right? You may identify a different approach to reaching that destination, or maybe they go back and say, this really isn't a priority. Now that we understand what the community needs, we can go a different direction, and our passions might be modified as a result of that. But great question.
Can I just add to that? It's also about, remember, this is creating a strong foundation for going forward. It is not set in concrete. It's like policies, they're not set in concrete. So if the world turns upside down and you have to go in a different direction, you can. But what you have done is you have developed this very strong foundation and an understanding of your club and where your priorities are and where you want to be. And from that, you can develop even better ideas and actions going forward. So just remember that. It is an incredible tool to grow your club. It's an incredible tool to be the magnet that your club wishes to be for a community around you to gather new members. So, but it doesn't mean that you can't be flexible.
Thanks for that input. When we talk about the master plan and the action plans to achieve those steps, very often you'll change course. They are somewhat dynamic. They're, as Lynn said, they're not set in stone. And sometimes to get to one of your target action plans, you have to do 2 or 3 before that to get to that level. So that's why modeling it over a 3-year plan, and when you go through the process, you'll learn a little bit more about the important role of what we call the champion. You know, the person that helps keep that vision alive, keeps the energy. You know, I don't know if any of your clubs do the 5-way test instead of the 4-way test in Rotary. Anyone know what the 5th is? Is it fun? And you heard, I think, Chris share how excited and energized, or maybe it was Nick, to see a club that may know each other, may not, to really come together and gel with enthusiasm and excitement and in fun. They literally walk out of that session seeing where they're going, believing that they're going to get there, and they want to get there. They all want to get there. I mean, it's just an incredible experience to witness. Yeah. Any other sharing? Any other questions maybe from someone who isn't in an area where club visioning is happening and you're kind of curious about how it could help you? And it's a little bit of a journey to the microphones.
Well, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents worth too. I'm a big believer in the visioning process. At the beginning of my presidential year, we did it, and the action plan idea is so terrific. You leave that meeting and you've got, yeah, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. And another thing that's important is when in a club, it's often easier to add something onto the list rather than to cross it off. And we found that the visioning process allowed us to declare victory and move on from some things that really we've just been doing because we always have. I happen to be right now, I'm from District 5950 also in Minnesota. I happen to be the AG coordinator, and our mission is for the AGs to be perceived as your club's best friend. And And one of the tools that the AGs can bring to the clubs is this visioning process, because it can really solve a lot of problems. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I just wanted to say how much of a believer I am in that process.
Thank you for that non-paid advertisement. We appreciate it.
Hi. Thank you so much for sharing. For those of you, I saw that you were raising your hand. For those of you who have already implemented this visioning program, have there been an improvement in your district? Yes? I don't hear much feedback. You have? Okay, because what happened is that I've been following this for the past 1 year, and I know Rita, Esteline, and Jill as well. And I've taken up this particular program for discussion with my current district governor and as well as the incoming district governors, and looking at the possibility of implementing this program for Singapore, Brunei, and as well as Malaysia, part of Malaysia. Because I can see from your map, you are in everywhere, including Australia, but nothing in Southeast Asia. And I think, I'm not too sure about the rest of the world, but in my district, a lot of clubs do not have strategic plans. And this is something that I thought would be good for us to implement, but I just want to know, what is it that we need to be prepared in order to implement this successfully? Thank you.
Well, that was perfect timing for that question. Thank you so much. And we would love to see that map continue to grow. One of the things that you have available in the app, so hopefully everyone's gotten the Rotary event app. I'll give you a QR code in a second because we're trying to honor the planet and not print a bunch of materials, is something called a district engagement process. So if you were not in the red areas of the map, and you, or even in your district, you're not sure if it's happening, this is a district program, so it starts with a conversation with the district leadership. If it's in an area of the world where club visioning is not currently active, we really need a champion. So Andre will volunteer you to help us work with your zone leaders and your district leaders to see the value of it. And we need to develop a leadership team. We have to identify people who can be facilitators. We can support some of that remotely in a virtual environment, but ideally the district will own its own program. So there is a district engagement process diagram that's available on the app and on our website that kind of walks through. But it starts with a conversation and the buy-in of the leadership to know the value of the program, and then each district enrolls with the International Vision Facilitation Council to then work out the training and learning plan for their district. So hopefully that answered your question. Yep. Michael.
Good afternoon, Michael Parker, 6710, Louisville, Kentucky, 7-year AG. Several years ago when I tried to start bringing up visioning into my club, and talked about the amount of time that it was going to take. When I talked to them, it was going to take 3 to 4 hours. Immediately I got shut down. How can we overcome that?
I love that question. Blaine, you want to take that one on?
Well, I'd offer beer.
Bourbon?
Not that there we go. Like I said, all clubs are unique. So I think in order for them to get the buy-in that you're looking to achieve, they need to understand the potential results. Right? Success doesn't come by sitting on your laurels and continuing to do things the way that we've always done them, because that's in our comfort zone, right? We need to get them to explore the opportunity. Now, one of the things that we can do, and we've done in the hybrid situation, is breaking up the facilitation into smaller time increments. So maybe it's not a full 4 hours in one night, but maybe we do 2 hours in one night and 2 hours on another night. And we can do the extraction process and the voting in round 1, and then we can come back and we can review the results, and we can talk about the action plan and the master plan in some of that small group discussion. Chances are, though, if they do give it a shot, they're going to enjoy it. I've never seen a group, generally as a facilitator, we try to keep them under control, right? They're getting a little unruly, they love the discussion, they love the sharing of ideas, and I think we just need to show them the opportunities that do exist and not treat it as drudgery or work.
Thank you.
And one of the other things, these are some of the resources that are available to our district visioning chairs, is we actually have a brief presentation. So if a club's not sure, you're getting a little pushback that, oh, why do we need to spend that much time, or you can't get the leadership there, it just means they're not ready. You really want that buy-in, and that might be helpful to actually have somebody come from the team to have a conversation with the club so they really know why an investment of that time is important to their club. Because it really is an investment into the future of the club, and they need to kind of embrace it a little bit more. If you're getting pushback, it just means they're not quite ready or they just don't understand the value yet.
But they may need it, right?
Yeah, great questions, great questions. All right, we're gonna have some time for some additional questions, but I wanna make sure you know where some of your resources are. Anybody here on Facebook? You should be able to scan that QR code. That will take you to our Facebook group. In that group, you will see a files section. The document that I referenced earlier, the district engagement process, is the first one in the files section. You'll also see some screenshots of people having fun doing club visioning. And it is really all about coming together in fellowship and fun to invest in your club's future. So please join us and follow us on Facebook. And if you think, boy, I'd really like to learn more about this, I think I'd like to maybe talk with our district leadership, or maybe you're a club president, you're not sure if your district's even part of that or not. This is where you can go to get more information. We ask you just give us a little bit of detail about who you are, what your district is. If you know your zone, that's even better. And what your role in the district is, so we can follow up. And what we'll do is align someone, like Lynn or Blaine or someone from your area to call and have a conversation and kind of see if club visioning is something that makes sense for you, and to start that process. Yeah. So we've got some time for additional questions. If there's anything else that's on your mind, or maybe a challenge with your club or your district and you're not sure if club visioning would fit with that or not.
Hi, my name is Howard Templin. I'm district governor for 5810 in North Central Texas. Seems like perennially there is a situation where you have what I call legacy projects. They're really big projects, takes a lot of resources and time and talent, and they don't go away. And there's always this fear that, okay, if we're going to trash that one because we got another thing that I think is a higher priority, and the people who've been involved with it for 15 years are going to leave the club. Any advice?
Lynn, you want to take that
I think, is there anyone here, can you put your hand up if you don't have a legacy project? Okay, that was no hands. We all have them. And I think one of the earlier people who spoke was saying that by doing a visioning process, you actually can make those legacy programs better. Or, more importantly, people start to understand. Let me take it back a bit. There's a fear factor. Any program, anything that looks like change is a fear factor. People don't know what it's going to look like. And in fact, some of us may lose our control. Some of us may not have the influence that we may be comfortable having. And let's face it, some people, actually, that's their security. We've got everybody in our Rotary clubs. We've got every type of person usually. And those who hang on to those legacy programs, is it really a bad thing? The question you've got to ask is, why do we have it? And I would recommend asking 5 whys. Why do we have it? Drill back down. In reality, visioning will help you to have a look at that. It doesn't destroy, if you do visioning properly, you're not going to destroy anything that's happening. What you're going to do is have other voices heard. And they are often the voices that are quiet while there's one major program taking up everybody's time and energy. What you also will find is if you've got a major project, sometimes that's all anyone's got the energy to do. And I often hear people saying, can't do anything else. You know, we've got Luna, we've got something else, we've got whatever it might be. Visioning gives you that opportunity to actually look at that program, look at what it's going to look like in the future. How is it going to be the same? It gives you an opportunity, as I said before, for everyone to have their voice. And there's often voices in our clubs who are not heard. And you might find there's a whole bunch of voices in your club that are supporting that legacy program. And you know, if you come out of a visioning session and you are actually confirming that what you have been doing is what you are going to be doing in 3 years, because that is who you are, that is a good thing. Why? Because you've suddenly realised you've given other people those voices, and you've realised that there is consensus to do this. And if people have been thinking, oh, that's, you know, those guys over there, it's not me, I'm not part of that. Suddenly they realise they are and what they can do and be part of that. So legacy programs simply need to be visited, don't pretend you don't have them. Look at what they should look like. And somebody mentioned earlier community assessments. This is when, you know, you do that. What is the value added we are doing with any of our programs, particularly long-term ones? And is it something that we wish to continue doing on our own, or is it something we can share with another Rotary Club? Sometimes that's also something we haven't thought about. So again, legacy programs, they fit it right into the visioning process to work out whether they're good, what they should change to be, or whether maybe they've had their time. But you don't know that until you do this process.
I'll add one little factor to that excellent response, in that sometimes the individuals that we think are going to walk out of a club because we've given up on their project come to understand that there's other options. And they get excited about those. I've seen those in my own club where we've got legacy projects of 97, 98 years running. And the same person at the helm of that project for 10, 12 years. And all of a sudden, he's got help, he's got new ideas, there's more life, there's more, it's refreshing, right? But it also gives us the opportunity to ask about relevancy. Is this project in the form that it's currently in still relevant to our community, still relevant to our members? Visioning doesn't say we're out with the past. It takes a look at where we're at and says, where are we going? That allows us to continue the things that we're doing, to modify the things that we're doing, or maybe say, the shelf life on this one is past its expiration date. Let's put that one away. Maybe it'll come back. But here's where we're at now and where we're headed. But don't make decisions based on the select few that you think are going to put up a fight, because we don't know that yet.
You're right. Good evening. I'm Steve Needley. I'm from District 7010 in Ontario, Canada. If a club or a district wants to participate in this process, is there a one-time or an annual fee that's charged for the materials and support, etc.?
I'll take that one. So there is an enrollment process. That conversation that starts with district leadership and with our zone vision coordinators is really important to really see where are you at in the developmental stage. Do you have facilitators from other programs? You just need to enroll. The current enrollment fee is $250 for the program, the onboarding,
US
dollars, thank you, intellectual property of the material. Yeah, and then there is an annual renewal fee. For our non-English speaking countries, there is a little more work on their end, so the renewal process is a little bit different, depending on how much they're going to have to do on their own versus what we can support. But to answer your question in a long way, There is a one-time enrollment fee, and then you coordinate what that training of your team would look like. And the timing of when that is paid really depends on that initial conversation. So hopefully that answered your question. Thank you.
My name's Russell. I'm from Brighton Hall, just down the Bay in District 9800. And yes, the club's agreed to be part of the trial to restructure, reorganise, whatever. And my background is with an international consulting company at the strategic IT level. So I was used to looking at the corporate mission, vision, strategy, tactical plans, and then the resources required to deliver it. And my own club's done a visioning for, I think we've done about 3 now, and it probably gets some dust along the way. But I would question it, but what I've seen, I've been in Rotary 17 years this month, excuse me. What I see though is, if you would take Rotary as a corporation, it's probably very good at the top. And then it says, well, we'll just throw everything from the top to the bottom and let them figure it out at the club level. But that to me, and I've seen it in my own cluster in the district, is it creates competition, lack of discussion, lack of involvement, and I think confusion in the community. There are 3 clubs in our local council area, over 2 districts, mind you, and we get to do some work, but there's competition, and I don't see that what's being done right now, if you were to start Rotary as a greenfields organisation, we seem to be floundering around with these sort of activities, but not saying how do we really get the sheer strength of 1.4 million Rotarians and Rotaractors to work together to build and achieve what at the very top they want us to do. So I challenge this process, and it's not broad enough and deep enough.
So thank you for the question. Point of clarity, this is not a Rotary International program. This is a program that was developed by a group of individuals who knew something was lacking in forward-thinking planning for their clubs. So similar to, if you're familiar with RLI and some of the other programs that are used by many Rotary clubs, but not an official Rotary International program. The importance of club visioning is Rotary International is only as strong as its members and its clubs. And club visioning is a tool. It's a tool to work from the clubs, from within, for the things that matter to them, in their community, that are unique to them. And they decide, and they choose what matters to them. It's not a top-down program at all. It is very much a bottoms-up program. Now, we've aligned it with the Rotary International Action Plan and Vision, from which we're part of the organization. But it is very much a boots-on-the-ground, bottom-up process. So thank you for that question.
Can I just make an extra comment to that? As a facilitator, visioning facilitator since 2008, across Australia, not just in my own district, one of the things you do see is the variety in every club, and it hits you in the face. And often, unless you're a district governor, you don't get to visit all these clubs and see how different they are, and yet there are some similar problems. Unfortunately, when some of the clubs get together, or they don't get together, or members don't go outside of their own club, they have an understanding that is unique to their situation. That's okay until they start to think that that's the only way to do it. That is, again, where visioning as a tool is a very, very useful tool, because it gives everyone that sort of, I hate the term, but an equal playing field. Everybody gets the opportunity to have a conversation, which they may not feel that they can actually have. Somebody's already talked about, if you're talking about corporate and you're talking about organisations, organisational change is the same. Transformational change is actually what we're talking about within a Rotary club. And it faces the same situations that any industry does, and in fact similar to government. The difference is, in many cases, we're all professional people or retired people. We bring to our Rotary club our skills and experience but in a volunteer capacity. That is the overlay that means that it makes it more interesting when we're facilitating visioning to get people to start thinking outside the box. And I say that because right at the beginning I said that visioning is a proven professional process, and it is. And I've used it in governments around the world, I've used it in industry, and I was using it in a different way prior to joining with the visioning facilitation team here. And one thing I can tell you, it does work, and the worries about top-down, they're actually not. One of the things we discover every time we do it is the lack of information many Rotarians have. There are still Rotarians out there who've never gone into my Rotary, which means that there's a whole world of information that they don't have. That is useful. Finding out people don't have information is an incredibly useful part of the process, because you can't build on a foundation that doesn't exist, or you can't build on information that is lacking. So it's really important when we have these things to actually use and apply a tool, even in parts of it to start, to see how we're going, to see how we can grow.
Thank you, Lynn. We'll go up to Tom and then back down front.
Yes. So I'm Tom Rupperdon from District 6510. Having been a facilitator for a number of years, for those of you who are trying to figure out what goes on, one of the things that we invite is we invite the senior folks, as Blake had mentioned, and the newest people. And so each of them has the same voice in the process. So one of the first ones we did, we had a member there, it was about 35 years, and everybody deferred to him. A smaller club deferred to him, and his idea was that we should never have anything outside of our community. And so when it came to the voting, that went up on the chart. And you know, it got one vote. Everybody else wanted to go a different direction. They didn't have the voice that vision gave those individuals to change the dynamics of that club. And it came from that whole process, brand new people, and that's the other part, is that I can tell you that when we get done with a visioning session, if we have one of those brand new people, new Rotarians, stepping up and want to being involved in developing that club to the future, that's when you know you've got success. And it's their plan, it's their ideas. The only thing I always tell them, the only thing we bring is paper, we don't bring any ideas, and at the end of the night we leave the paper. And that's the beauty of what visioning does, and it empowers clubs. I was kind of interesting, we've mentioned statistics. Prior to us doing visioning in our district, I think our top year we ever had was $68 per member to the foundation. After we did that for 3 or 4 years, that number it went up to over $140 per member. And that happened unfortunately, while our membership was going down, people were much more generous, simply because we opened their eyes up. They saw the bigger picture of what we were all about. And every club that goes through that, whether they complete the whole process or stop in the middle of it, they benefit, and that community benefits from what you do. And that's why it's so important that we help these clubs succeed. And the only way we get to do that is they got to invite us in. The district's got to have it, and we got to invite them in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We're getting close on time. We've got the last 2 questions at the mic, so if we could have your question quickly. We'll go ahead in the front, please.
Well, technically it's not actually a question.
Okay.
It's just perfectly segue with all the new Rotarians. It's not good to say things like I'm bad at. I'm still working on my challenges with my Rotary. And also, I'm thrilled about this visioning thing. I'll be asking you more about it. I've got a rock here, because I went to a session yesterday about, not rock soup, whatever it was. And you might be aware that in Australia we're talking about Aboriginal people, etc., etc. And I've had a lot of fun at this convention, catching up with my friends from the Philippines, and I did not get invited there. I took myself to breakfast at the MCG that I wasn't able to pay for, and my friends from the Philippines paid for me. Anyway, I have to stop in literally 15 seconds, Because my plan for world peace and everything else is this thing I call a PEPAPI, which means a minute each, and I don't think our club has a vision, or if we do, I don't know what it is, so maybe we haven't communicated it, and that's my minute.
Thank you. And we will have some time, because there's another session immediately following this. We will be actually outside of the doors in the seating area if anyone has individual questions as well. All right, last question.
Hi, I'm Susan Garrison from Media, Pennsylvania, District 7450. And I really think this is a great process because when I was an incoming board member, our incoming president decided, oh, we should have a strategic plan, and I guess they hadn't had one for very long, but they made the mistake of having the planning team really be only the board and the incoming board members. Well, that was not received well because there were perceived criticisms of the way things have been done. But anyway, so as membership chair last year, we did a membership survey, and I was, struggling to get 40-some% of our members to answer these questions about what's the purpose of our club and what do you want to see and how do you want to meet. So my question is about how do you get people engaged in this process from the get-go? I mean, aside from going back to my incoming president and saying, we really need to do this in my district. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Quickly, so part of the training and the learning that the district team goes through is how to help present the information to the club, how to help work with them to see the value and to clarify who needs to be at the table. Because you're absolutely correct. If you don't have a voice, you don't have a buy-in. And that's a critical part of the entire program. So my quick answer to that is it is part of the training program as we onboard the district to help work with the clubs to engage them in participation and helping them have the right people at the table. So thank you. So we are at the end of our session, and again, we have another session right after this. If you have not rated this session, we ask that you go to your Rotary event app, to the club visioning session, and please give us your feedback. As a reminder, the session materials, the presentation materials, and the 2 handouts that were referenced, the district engagement process, and then the reference document with this QR code on it as well, if you want to follow up for questions or more information. I'd like to thank my co-presenters, Lynn Duckham and Blaine Johnson. And I'd like to thank our technical team and our interpreters that were here today to make sure everyone could engage and participate. If you see someone with one of these badges that says, ask me about club visioning, they can also help answer your questions. And if you're an active facilitator or part of the club visioning process, I believe in the back of the room, we do have some of those available on your way out. Thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your time in Melbourne.